Hello, I'm the One Ed. This is another devlog in my continuing project Papyrus 3D, which is a attempt at creating a IF 3D framework for A-frame basically, so you can create interactive fiction experiences in 3D, which will work in on the web as an executable and in VR and AR. I'm a bit tired, so I apologise if I'm about to sleep, but I thought I'd do just a quick dev update. I did quite a long 20-minute sort of ramble, a reflection on where Papyrus is up to recently, but I thought I'd just do a bit of a sort of wrapping up of this stage. So it is actually making a lot of progress. I'll play some footage from the latest prototype build on screen now. And yeah, it's almost getting there to the point where it's already released, but to the point where I think it's usable. It's usable already somewhat, but obviously the dialogues and everything is still quite broken. And one of the real difficulties actually I'm having is like making this so that A, it works, but B, it's not confusing as hell, which is very, very difficult. And now I've done smaller tools before, but from doing something like this where it has to fulfill a lot of criteria, for example, that's the main difficulty with this project. Is like it has to be relatively easy to use. You have to be able to generate all the scenes and all the configs and all the associated features, essentially with JSON configs, pretty much. So the amount of things that I'm having to factor in, it makes it a challenge, to say the least, but I'm getting there now. I've added a new feature called monologues, which is a JSON file, which is essentially for the play. Like there's an intro in the setting in the scene config now, which basically triggers an introductory dialogue. The dialogue systems in general are better. There's still a lot of loose ends to tie off, but it is getting there. And you realise why doing like parsing of text stuff is actually quite complicated. It sounds so simple, but there's so much you have to balance out. I've sort of settled on this system now, in terms of like triggering choices, which I'm still just trying to work on at the minute, of having it so that say for an interaction on a prefab, for example, it will trigger a choice dialogue which will then be linked to a certain passage. But yeah, it's just a lot of the getting the components configured correctly. It's a lot of back and forth, making sure you don't knock functionality out in the process of doing that as well. But I'm pretty happy with where it's going. You'll see from the clip it's looking a bit more polished. Still, the movement's still a bit funny. I do want to keep it with the gaze-based movement, but it does mean that you end up looking at the floor a lot of the time, and accidental movements can still be quite a thing, so I'm going to try and refine that somewhat. There are longer videos I've done on this if you want to track the whole sort of like development process of Papyrus 3D. I'm hoping to get once I've got the core demo done, it'll be a case of tidying up the map editor, and then I think it's basically ready for public use, or the public to try it out and actually make something with it, I guess. I hope someone will. I hope that someone will be able to get some use from it. Even if they don't, to be fair, like feel like I've challenged myself and in terms of developing A-frame component systems, which is something I've been doing for a few years as a hobby. I feel I've pushed myself to the limit of that, which is always a good thing to do as a developer. So even as an exercise in itself, it's not completely useless. And I do think, obviously, one of the only last thing I'll say is when it is actually finished, and I feel confident enough to say that this beta version of the Papyrus 3D is done, I will release some documentation. So if you want to use it, there'll be a documentation detailing all the use cases, how to populate dialogues, how to create prefabs, how to replace the assets with your own assets. Because yeah, a big part of what I'm trying to always maintain in this project is obviously I'm providing the user with a demo project, but you can like just import in all your own assets, your own prefabs, your own 3D models. It's entirely pointless unless the user can do that, really. You know, otherwise it's just like, here's a a scene that you can use these predefined assets for. I mean, obviously I'm going to provide some textures within the framework itself that you can just use, but it's pointless unless the user can import in their own assets, their own models, and their own animations, because then, yeah, then it's like more of like a game engine type system, right? Otherwise it's just a template for adding predefined assets. Anyway, I'm going to keep this quite short. If you want to have like a little bit more of my thought processes and then development up to this point, there was a recent vlog I did, the last video, talking about that dev update. This is another dev update, I suppose, but mostly just to share the demo of where it's up to now. Like and subscribe. I generally do tutorials, mostly JS based tutorials, JavaScript tutorials, and just document my projects. Let me know what I did. Thanks.